Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is the third video on the Governmental Fund Accounting cycle. In this video, we will solve illustrations comprehensively on Governmental Fund Accounting. We will solve problems on accounting and financial reporting cycle, transactions and financial statements, and encumbrances and expenditure accounting. Please like, subscribe and share my channel to search for accounting lessons and hit the notification bell button to alert you for the latest video. For all of your questions, comments and suggestions, please put them in the comment section below, and for webinar and guest speaker invites, please send me a message at accountingamir@gmail.com. Accounting is AK. We hope that this video help students in their academic development and teachers in enhancing their lesson plans and teaching methodologies. We hope that this video help aspirants of CPA, AICPA, ACCA and CMA programs. We also hope that this video help students of Masters in Financial Accounting, Masters in Taxation, Masters in Governmental Accounting, and students who have joined training courses of Saudi Organization for Certified Public Accountants, SOCBA, and other accounting program aspirants. We also hope that this video help fresh graduates who have joined governmental or not-for-profit organization and want to refresh their learning about recording of governmental funds, accounting and financial reporting cycle, transactions and financial statements, and encumbrance and expenditure accounting. So let us start with an illustration on accounting and financial reporting cycle. In an effort to improve its recreation facilities and to provide employment during recession, Empire State created a Trails Special Revenue Fund. By law, all traffic fines collected by the state police were directed to be placed in the Trails Special Revenue Fund and used to pay only the salaries of individuals employed to create new hiking trails in Placid State Park. The Special Revenue Fund had the following transactions and events during the calendar year 2013. Prepare journal entries to record these transactions and events and prepare a statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for the Trails Special Revenue Fund for 2013. So this exercise is an accounting and financial reporting cycle for Special Revenue Fund, and we will not record the budgetary ledger or appropriation as there is only one transaction for revenue collection. We will also not record encumbrance as the appropriation is for salary, which is a predictable expenditure. So the first journal entry will be to record the budget, and when we record the budget, they say the legislature adopted and the governor approved a budget with estimated traffic fine revenues of 900,000. These are estimated and that's why they are budgeted, and parks and recreation programs of 880,000. So we have estimated revenue traffic fines debit by 900,000 and appropriations parks and recreation salaries is credited by 880,000 as the planned expenditures are credited, and the amount that is going to be a fund balance, and in this case the fund balance is the difference between the estimated revenue and appropriation, that is 20,000, and since appropriation is less than the estimated revenue. That's why we have a credit for budgetary fund balance. Then received parking fine revenues of 890,000. So we are receiving cash of 890,000, and revenues parking fines is going to be credit. This is a revenue. Then paid salaries of 870,000. So expenditures park and recreation salaries is credit by 870,000, and we are paying, so cash is credit by 870,000. And then finally incurred a liability of 7,000 for salaries earned by employees. So we are incurring a liability, that means we are not paying this, but this is an accrued salaries payable. So expenditure parks and recreation salaries is debit by 7,000, and accrued salaries payable is credit by 7,000. Next, we are going to post these journal entries in the ledger, and by this time you may be knowing how we record the ledger. We have the journal entries we have recorded just now, and all these journal entries are recorded into the ledger. Based upon these postings, we are going to prepare the pre-closing trial balance, and let me copy down these balances. Don't forget that we first record the budgetary accounts, and then we record the financial accounts. So estimated revenue is 900,000, it has a debit balance. Then we have appropriations of 880, this is credit balance. Budgetary fund balance is credit by 20,000. Then we have cash, and the cash balance will be 20,000 debit. Then we have revenues parking 890 credit. Then we have expenditures park and recreation salaries, that will be 877,000 debit. And then we have accrued salaries payable credit by 7,000. And if you make the total will be 1,797,000, 1,797,000, and we have recorded the accounts correctly. Next, they say we have recorded the journal, and after recording the journal we have to prepare the statement of revenues, expenditure, and changes in fund balance. So from the trial balance we can have the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in funds balance. We have revenues of 890,000. Then we have the expenditures over here of 877,000, and in this case there is an excess of revenue by 13,000. There was no beginning balance, so ending balance is 13,000. Next, let us solve an exercise on transactions and financial statements. The trustee of Quetzal Park Revenue Fund approved the following budget for the calendar year 2013. We have the estimated revenues and appropriations. These are the budgeted amounts. Transactions are over here, and using the preceding information, we have to first of all prepare the general entries. So first of all we are going to record the budget, and the estimated revenues are going to be debit by 260. 260,000. Then we have admission fees of 140,000. Then we have appropriations, park and recreation salaries, 280,000. Then we have parks and recreation supplies, 40,000. And then we have park and recreation cat food, that is 60,000. And once again the debit is more than the credit, so we have a credit of 20,000 for budgetary fund balance. Then so we have recorded the approved budget. Then collected 250,000 in general admission fees and 160,000 in Big Cat Zoo admission fees during the year. So we are receiving cash. So cash is debit by 250 plus 160, that is 410,000. And this is revenue for general admission fees, 250,000. And revenue cat zoo admission fees, 160,000. So next we ordered supplies for 380,000. Now in financial accounting, accrual basis is applied, so expenditure is not recognized until the liability is incurred, that is until the ordered materials are received. But in budgetary accounting, since the purchase order uses up a portion of the appropriations, a formal accounting recognition is given to the order by recording the encumbrance equal to the purchase ordered amount, and in this case this is 38,000. So encumbrance park and recreation supplies, because that is how they name it, park and recreation supplies, is debit by 38,000. And budgetary fund balance reserve for encumbrance is credit by 38,000. Then number 4, all supplies ordered in previous transaction arrived together with an invoice of 37,000. The invoice was approved for payment but was not paid during the year. So now the order has been received, and first the encumbrance entry is reversed. So this general entry is reversed over here, and by the same amount, that is 38,000. And then they say that it was approved for payment although we have not paid, but then this creates a liability. So expenditure parks and recreation supplies is debit by 37,000, and vouchers payable is credit by 37,000, because this is the voucher that they have received. This is not the income, this is the value the government has to pay. Then we go to transaction number 5, and the Cardsgirl trustee approved 10,000 increase in the cat food appropriation. Now cat food was 60,000, and now they are approving this by 10,000. So the trustees approval for increase in appropriation means that the budgetary fund balance will decrease. So now the budgetary fund balance will be debit, and this will be debit by 10,000. Remember that increase in estimated revenue will increase budgetary fund balance, and we credit budgetary fund balance, while increase in appropriation will decrease budgetary fund balance. Then we debit budgetary fund balance as we have done in this case. So budgetary fund balance is debit and appropriations park and recreation cat food is credit by 10,000. We move on to number 6 now. During the year, salaries were paid in the amount of 270,000. Also, at year end, an accrual of 9,000 was made for salaries earned but not paid. Now, salaries are not encumbered as these expenses are predictable and its encumbrance do not impact the budgetary control. At the same time, salary expenditures must be accrued in governmental funds because they are normally paid in a timely manner and in full from current financial resources. So this 9,000 is also going to be recorded. So expenditure, park and recreation salaries is debit by 270,000 and cash is credit by 270,000. Then expenditures, park and recreation is debit by 9,000 and accrued salaries payable is credit by 9,000. We go to number 7 now. Cat food in the amount of 68,000 was purchased, paid for and consumed. Purchase order for cat food are not prepared. Record the liability for receipt of the food and the payment. So again, because purchase order are not prepared, we are not going to go for encumbrance. We simply record this as a liability. um, uh, so first of all, expenditure park and recreation cat food is debit by 68,000 and vouchers payable is credit by 68,000 and then we are paying this as well. So voucher payable is debit by 68,000 and cash is credit by 68,000. Next, once we have prepared the journal entries, we are going to record. This is what we have done in the on the previous slide, and now we are going to record these transactions in the T account as you can see over here. And I'm not going to explain because you may be knowing how to make a T account from the journal at this stage of your learning. And from the T account we are going to prepare the pre-closing trial balance. So we have the T account over here, the ledgers, and don't forget we first record the budgetary accounts and then we prepare the financial accounts, or we record the financial accounts. So estimated revenue, general admission fees is 260,000. Then we have estimated revenues, big cat zoo is 140,000. Then we have the appropriation for parks and recreation salaries is 280. This is credit. And appropriation park and recreation supplies is credit by 40,000. Then we have appropriations, parks and recreation cat food, and this will be 70,000 credit. Then we have the budgetary fund balance, and this will be balance of 10,000 in the credit. Then we have the financial accounts. We have cash and the balance will be 72,000. Then we have revenues, general admission, that is 250,000. Then we have revenues, cat zoo admission fees 160,000. Then we have expenditures, We have obviously there won't be any balance for encumbrances. We have expenditure debit by 37,000, and then we have vouchers payable, and vouchers payable is going to be having a credit balance of 37,000. Then we have expenditures parks and recreation, this will be 279,000. Then we have accrued salaries payable of 9,000. And then finally we have expenditures park and recreations cat food 68,000, and the total will be 856,000, and the totals are equal, so there is no mistake in preparing the pre-closing trial balance. Next, we are going to prepare the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in funds balance. And just keep one thing in mind, that when we prepare the statement of revenues, expenditures, and fund balance, we don't take into account the budgetary balances. We simply go for the financial accounts, and we start with the general admission revenue of 250. General admission is 250,000. Then we have big cat zoo admission fees 160,000, so the total revenue will be 410,000. Then we have expenditures salaries of 279. Then we have supplies of 37. Then we have expenditures park and recreation 68, and the total expenditure is 384,000. Now again, this is an excess of revenue, as revenue is more than the total expenditure, and this is equal to 26,000. There is no beginning balance, so the fund balance at the end of the year is 26,000. Next, we are going to prepare the balance sheet, and for this we have cash, we have cash 70,000. There is no other asset over here, so the total is 72,000. Then we have accrued salaries payable, that is 9,000. And then we have vouchers payable 37,000. So the total liabilities will be 46,000. And we have the committed fund balance of 26,000. Oh, and the total will be 72,000. And once again, you can see that the total of assets is equal to total of liabilities and funds balance, so we have recorded correctly. Next, we are going to prepare the budgetary comparison schedule, and for this we have the original three components are there. We have the original budget, we have the final budget, we have the actual, and then here we will determine the variance. Now for the original budget, we are going to take the information from the question as it was approved. So we have general admission fees for 260,000 as, so this is 260,000. Then we have Big Cat Zoo admission fees for 140,000. So the total is 400,000 total revenues. Then there were expenditures of 280, 40 and 60. So we have salaries for 280,000, supplies for 40,000, and cat food is for 60,000, and the total is 380,000. And the excess of revenue over expenditure is 20,000, and that is what you can see over here. Now there is no beginning balance, so that this amount is 0, and the fund balance at the end of the year will be 20,000. Let me draw a line here. Okay. Now the final budget was there was no change for the admission fees or the Big Cat admission fees, so we simply put the same amounts, 260,000 and 140,000. So the total is 400,000. There was no change in the salaries or the supplies, so we have 280,000 and 40,000. But you can recall that the CADZELT approved 10,000 increase in the cat food appropriation. So it is increasing by 10,000. So that means now this amount becomes 70,000, and the total now will be 390,000, and the excess of revenue over expenditure now is going to be 10,000, no beginning balance, and the total is 10,000 now. Next we are going to look for the actual actual revenue and expenditure, and the actual revenue was 250 and 160. So 250,000 and 160,000. Then so the total is 410,000. Then we are going to look for the salaries. For the salaries, how much is the salaries? Salaries is 279,000. Then expenditure for the supplies was 37,000, and expenditure for the cat food was 68,000. So the total is 384,000, and the balance will be 410 minus 384, that makes 26,000. There is no beginning balance, and the balance is 26,000. Next we are going to look at the variance, and the variance will be between actual and the final budget. Now our actual revenue was 10,000 less, so this was unfavorable. The revenue should be more to make it favorable. The admission fees, we are there is that is favorable by 20,000. So the net effect is that there is a favorable increase in revenue of 10,000. Then we look at the expenditure, and the expenditure, when it is less than the budget, then it becomes favorable. So it is favorable for salaries, favorable for supplies, and favorable for the cat food as well. So it is a favorable increase of 6,000, and the excess you can see is 10 minus 6, 10. Now this is excess because this is favorable and this one is favorable as well. So both of them are going to be added. So that will be 16,000. You can compare 26 by 10 also. That will give you the same result. No beginning balance, and the fund balance at the end is 16,000. And this is what, if you can remember, we have 16,000 and you can verify the fund balance. uh, uh, that was 26,000 at the end, and so this was the excess. So if you add up 10 plus 16, so the fund balance is going to be 26. Next, let us solve an exercise on encumbrance and expenditure accounting. The city council made an appropriation of 95,000 to the police department for the purchase of supplies, equipment and vehicles. So in this exercise we can see that there will be only one appropriation, and the city council can spend it on supplies, equipment and vehicles all together. The following transactions and events occurred regarding this appropriation. Prepare an appropriation ledger using columns for encumbrances, debit and credit, expenditures and available balance. Then prepare journal entries. So we are going to prepare journal entries in a while to record the transactions and events. Post the appropriation amount and the journal entries to the appropriation ledger. Charge all expenditures to supplies and equipments. Make sure your final posting shows the remaining amount available for spending. So the first one is that the department placed purchase order 1 for 5 motorcycles estimated to cost 10,000 each. So first of all, when we purchase from an appropriation, we record encumbrance, and encumbrance is going to be debit by 50,000, 10,000 times 5, and budgetary fund balance is going to be credit by 50,000. The department placed purchase order 2 for crime prevention supplies at an estimated cost of 30,000. Again, we record the encumbrance, and encumbrance is debit by 30,000, and budgetary fund balance reserved for encumbrance is credit by 30,000. Then we go to transaction number 3. The motor or cycles ordered in purchase order 1 arrived in good condition. The invoice of 50,000 was approved for payment. So budgetary fund balance reserved for, so we are first of all we are going to reverse the encumbrance once we receive. So we have reversed the journal entry, and this will be debit by now 50,000, and encumbrance will be credit by 50,000. And then you see the invoice was approved for payment. We are not making the payment, so again expenditure is debit by 50,000, and vouchers payable is credit by 50,000. We move on to transaction number 4, and in transaction number 4, purchase order 3 was placed for radio equipment at an estimated cost of 10,000. So once again encumbrance is going to be debit. We are going to record the encumbrance, and budgetary fund balance will be credit. Then we move to number 5, the supplies ordered in purchase order number 2 along with an arrived, so we have received it along with an invoice of 32. So first of all we are going to reverse the journal entry, and now the budgetary fund balance is going to be debit by 30,000, and this is encumbrance is credit by 30,000. Now at the same time, now the invoice that we have received is for 32,000 and not 30, and this was approved for payment. So obviously expenditures are going to be debit now by 32,000 and not 30,000. Then the department obtained a check from the finance director for 250 made out to a local supplier to purchase a new firearm for 250 on an emergency basis. No purchase order had been placed, and if there is no purchase order, there is no encumbrance. We simply record this pay expenditure. It is debit by 250,000 and cash is credited by 250,000. So that's how we record all the journal entries. And next they say um, we have to prepare an appropriation ledger, and that is what they are talking about. We have an appropriation ledger with all the appropriate columns, and first of all we are going to record the record the purchase order number 1, record the purchase order number 1, and there is an appropriation of of 50,000, encumbrance of 50,000, and the app oh sorry first of all there will be an appropriation, and appropriation was for 95,000. So the total is 95,000. Then we have not made the journal entry for this one. Then we have the journal entry number 1 where we record purchase order number 1, and encumbrance was debit by 50,000. So when it is debit by 50,000, that means the balance now available is 45, 95 minus 50. Then we go to number 2. Again there is a encumbrance debit of 30,000. This is record purchase order number 2, and now we have 45 minus 30, that is 15,000 is the available appropriation after we uh, send a purchase order number 2. Then we go for number 3. In number 3 we have reversed the encumbrance, and now encumbrance is credit, so we put it this is for purchase order number 1 received, and encumbrance will be debit credit by 10,000. This increases it to 45. Then we go to we continue with number 3, because we have to expend purchase order number 1. You can say it is vouchered. We are not paying, we are only giving. There is a voucher payable, and this is going to be for 50,000 debit. So 45 95 45, then we have 15 15. Oh, for purchase order number 1 when we receive, so we have to reverse the encumbrance, and that will be 50,000, and this becomes 65,000, and now we have the voucher of 50,000, and again the balance reduces to 15,000. Then we go to number 4. In number 4 again there is an encumbrance is debit by 10,000, so we record 10,000 in the debit, and when we record in the debit, now we have 15 minus 10, that is 5,000 is the balance, and this is for recording purchase order number 3. Then we go to number 5. In number 5, encumbrance is credit by 30,000, so we credit, this is purchase order number 2. Purchase order number 2 is received. So once we receive it, encumbrance is reversed, so 30,000, and now the total is 35,000, and then again this has to be purchase order number 2 is going to be vouchered, and when we are vouchering it has to be 32,000, so expenditure is debit obviously for 32,000, and the balance is 3,000. And then we go to number 6 when we make a cash purchase of 250. Again this is an expenditure of 250, so this is cash purchase for 250, and now we have a balance of 2,750. So the balance that for appropriation ledger they can spend another 2,750 for the remaining budgeted period, and that is what they were asking about when they say make sure your final posting shows the remaining amount available for spending. So the remaining amount available for spending is 2,750. Let us solve one more exercise on encumbrance and expenditure accounting. And the city council appropriated 80,000 to the park department for the purchase of shrubs, trees, small tools, and small items of equipment. The following transactions and the events occurred regarding the appropriation. Prepare an appropriation ledger using columns for encumbrance, debit and credit, expenditure, available balance. Then prepare the general entries to record the transactions and events. So we are going to have two things. We are going to prepare the journal entries and we are going to prepare the appropriation ledger. Post the amount appropriated and the journal entries to the appropriation ledger. Charge all expenditures to supplies. Make sure so, and all the purchases that we are doing over here will be recorded under the heading of supplies. Make sure your final posting shows the remaining amount available for spending. So first one, the department placed purchase order number 1 for trees and shrubs at an estimated cost of 25,000. So again we record the encumbrance. Encumbrance is debit by 25,000, and budget refund balance reserved for encumbrance is credit by 25,000. We go to number 2. The department placed purchase order number 2 for small tools at an estimated cost of 30,000. So again encumbrance is debit by 30,000 and budget refund balance is credit by 30,000. We go to number 3. The item in purchase order number 1 arrived in good condition along with an invoice of 27. So the purchase order was for 25, but this is going to be the invoice is for 27. So first of all we are going to reverse the journal entry. So budgetary fund balance is debit by 25,000, encumbrance is credit by 25,000, and now there is an expenditure of 27 to be recorded and not 25. Expenditure is debit by 27,000 and vouchers payable is credit by 27,000. Then we go to number 4. The controller paid the invoice for 27,000. So voucher payable we are paying. So voucher payable is debit and cash is credit. Then we go to number 5. An emergency made it necessary to acquire 2 chainsaws immediately. After calling 3 local suppliers to get the best price, the park's superintendent got a check for 450 from the finance commissioner and picked up the chainsaws. So again, you remember all the expenditures will be recorded as supplies. So expenditure is debit by 450 and cash is credit by 450. Next, we are going to prepare the appropriation ledger. So we have the journal over here, and the first thing is to record the appropriation. And the appropriation was 80,000. So we have appropriation for 80,000. Then we record the purchase order number 1. There is an record purchase order number 1. Encumbrance is debit by 25,000. So the balance will be now 55. 80 minus 25. Then we go to number 2. We are going to record purchase order number 2, and again there is debit for encumbrance for 30,000, and now we have a total of 25. 55 minus 30 is 25. The third one, we have received the purchase order. So first of all, we are going to reverse the encumbrance for 25,000, and the total now becomes 50,000. We go to and then the purchase order 1, it has been encumbrance was debit, and then we have the purchase order number 1 vouchered, and it is vouchered for 27,000. So now we have a balance of 23,000. We are not going to record voucher payable in the appropriation ledger over here, but we are going to record number 5. So no entry for number 4, and for number 5 we have a emergency purchase. So emergency purchase was for 450, no encumbrance, so that means the balance is 22,550. So this is what they are asking for. Show the remaining amount and the available for spending, and the remaining amount available for spending is 22,550. So this completes the illustration on fund accounting. We have solved illustrations comprehensively and explained how to journalize transactions for general fund, also transactions for fund accounting. We have shown how budgetary accounting is done and how we record the appropriations. So I hope that you have enjoyed this presentation, and if you found value in this video, then please like, subscribe and share my channel, and hit the notification bell button to alert you for the latest video. For webinar and guest speaker invites, please send me a message at accountingamir@gmail.com. Remember, effective questioning brings insight, which fuels curiosity, which cultivates wisdom. If you have any question or any suggestion regarding this session, then please put them in the comment section below or by email, and inshallah I will reply you back. Thank you so much and happy learning.